The first Ukrainian electric truck with unique features. The plant that produces individual parts and finished models for export to the EU. How did Ukrainian engineers from a small city begin making 21st century vehicles? UATV visited the Lutsk automobile plant, where the future of national engineering is being born. Just two pieces of news with a gap of 4 days. On April 9, 2019, a new zero-emission electric bus was presented in Athens. If such vehicles get launched on local routes, it will become the first city electric transport park in Greece. Meanwhile, on April 13th, a Paris-based passenger transport operator announced the purchase of 800 electric buses that will replace all diesel buses. French authorities are willing to spend up to 400 million euros on that, and if everything goes according to plan, it will become the largest deal in the EU's transport sector. Paris City Hall is very concerned about the ever-growing issue of smog ahead of the 2024 Summer Olympics. Officials promise that they will only purchase electric buses from 2025. By 2030, there should be no gas-powered vehicles in the city at all, even hybrid ones. China is ready to produce electric transport for both Athens and Paris. The Shenzhen megapolis, with its population of 12.5 million people, switched completely to electric buses at the end of 2018, and their vehicle park is larger than anywhere in the world and runs to 16,000 vehicles. Given the fact that the smog situation is worst in Chinese cities, it is no wonder that this country is deploying large-scale production of electric vehicles. But even China cannot meet the increasing demands of the electric revolution. In the coming decade, all city transport will be gradually replaced in Europe, which might amount to tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of vehicles. One Ukrainian plant has already joined the effort. Our company's main specialization is the production of various modifications of buses, as well as electric vehicles. It also includes mass production of trolleybuses. Even though in some cases we work with partners, we possess the groundwork for various electric vehicles, such as electric cars and a vision for electric buses. Yaroslav Hrytsev is personally responsible for production at the Lutsk car assembly plant. At the beginning of 2018, the company received a very interesting order from a Danish company. They threw their best specialists at it, led by chief engineer Bogdan Hvozdik. Their task was to design an electric truck chassis, but a multi-purpose chassis. It differs in many ways from similar analogs that exist in Europe today. Up next, how did a plant that produced Soviet SUVs back in the day become a valuable contractor for modern-day Europe? What is unique about the multi-purpose electric truck for Denmark? And in what areas can it be used? UATV found out all the details of the first such Ukrainian project from engineers in Lutsk. The first plant appeared here almost in the very center of Lutsk, as far back as in 1951. At first, they repaired cars of other manufacturers and produced spare parts for them. At the end of the 60s came the plant's finest hour, as they released a series of light off-road vehicles that had the common name of Luaz. Simply put, they were a special class of SUVs. In the Soviet Union, which Ukraine was a part of, buying a car was extremely difficult, not just because of the price, but also due to the artificial restrictions set by the planned economy. Luaz 969 became the first off-road vehicle in the entire USSR that was officially sold to citizens for personal use, as well as the first mass-produced vehicle for rural residents. It is no surprise that this ensured the operation of the plant for decades to come. Bogdan Hvozdik personally witnessed the plant's golden era. I began my career at the factory as a design engineer. A range of new Luaz models was also developed at the time. I started work here in 1980, and I've been the sixth designer at this plant since 1986. Yaroslav Hrytsev started his career nearby at the Lviv bus plant, which produced a large number of Laz diesel buses in the same Soviet period. The industrial crisis of the 1990s forced many specialists to quit. There were more opportunities in Kiev, but Yaroslav wanted to remain closer to home. This place was closer. I myself am a citizen of Lviv, so when I found out that a bus production was starting in Lutsk, I applied for a job there. The plant opened in 2005. Prior to that, a huge amount of work was done to modernize old shops, that is, to convert them into bus assembly lines. The mid-2000s were a time of rapid economic growth in Ukraine. Thanks to investments, the car plant that produced off-road Luaz vehicles was turned into a modern public transport plant with European equipment. Everything to meet the needs of Ukrainian cities in terms of new buses and trolleybuses. There are currently 2 assembly shops and an old building that can house 2,000 buses. Vehicles that are 12 meters or more in length, 12, 15, 18, and vehicles from 8 to 10 meters long. Our plant's total capacity is 6,000 buses per year. And then came the global financial crisis of 2008. It was a heavy blow for the Lutsk automobile plant, as transport purchases on the domestic Ukrainian market dropped to almost nothing. It was then that the plant started searching for lucrative orders in the West. Their first major success was a contract to participate in production of 38 trolleybuses for the Polish city of Lublin. It was a consortium. Our plant, representatives of the Polish company, and Czechs who were involved in part of the design process and installation of the electric traction technology. But we welded the chassis in its entirety. It was an incomplete assembly. Lutsk automobile plant successfully fulfilled all the requirements and recommended itself as a contractor. The Ukrainian company also managed to launch joint production of trolleybuses for the European Union with another Czech company. We reached the peak of this partnership with the EU in 2018. I think it received broad media coverage. Ukrainian Infrastructure Minister Volodymyr Omelyan paid us a visit, and we held the presentation of 2 finished electric cars. While in the past Lutsk automobile plant produced only the chassis and some other parts for further assembly in the European Union, now they have designed an entire electric truck basically from scratch. Yaroslav Hrytsev and Bogdan Hvozdik told UATV just how difficult this task turned out to be, what features and systems distinguish this vehicle from others, and how it is done in general. The electric truck is a new addition among the modern environmentally friendly vehicles. Naturally, the first prototypes appeared quite a long time ago, back in the late 20th century. But it seemed a bit premature to think about trucks when designers could not yet solve a number of problems with electric cars. In recent years, with the technology becoming more advanced, governments of various countries have begun to primarily replace public transport. In Denmark, they're thinking one more step ahead. They want to replace all vehicles in cities with electric ones, including garbage collection and transport vehicles. With that idea in mind, the Danes reached out to Ukrainian designers. They set a task that it does not have to be a generic truck or a car chassis with an electric motor that's attached. They want to make a solid mono chassis, parts of the driver's cabin and chassis that the whole system is mounted on, transmission, wheels, drive base, electric traction container, and only then is the container of the garbage truck mounted on the chassis. The Lutsk automobile plant became famous for its high-quality bodies for city transport. The Ukrainian company accepted the challenge and began designing a completely new kind of vehicle. It is very difficult to compare a truck, a trolleybus, and a bus, since these vehicles have completely different purposes. But basically, we used a lot of the experience we acquired from designing buses and trolleybuses when we were designing this truck. Trucks usually have the main supporting horizontal frame, to which the axle is mounted, while the wheels, cabin, engine, and other components are already attached. Ukrainian designers decided at the very beginning that the whole body of the vehicle would be the supporting frame. This increases the lifespan of the vehicle significantly. Moreover, this support system is made of low-alloy structural steels, which enable the corrosion resistance of the chassis itself to be increased. In the past century, when similar vehicles were driven by powerful diesel engines, They were almost always placed in the front part under the cabin. Electric motors are much more compact, so much so that they fit right in the wheels. The truck the Danes ordered was set out exactly like that. It has a drive axle with adapted motor wheels. The maximum power of these engines is 125 kilowatts each, with nominal power at 60 kilowatts. They used an axle with motor wheels made in Germany. They focused on maximizing vehicle maneuverability, as requested by the customer, which means making as many wheel axles as possible steering. The front axle has an independent suspension. The drive axle with motor wheels is mounted on the middle axle, and the rear axle also has an independent suspension with steering wheels. Such a drive allows the vehicle to turn into limited space with fewer maneuvers. Ukrainian engineers also thought of other ways to improve its road handling and came up with an orthodox solution. The battery pack is offset and is located above the front axle. Battery packs are usually located in the center of a vehicle because of how heavy they are. But placing the battery pack over the front axle made it possible to optimize the axle load. The total weight of the Ukrainian electric truck with an installed and loaded compactor for solid waste is 27 tons. A third of this weight, almost 9 tons, is set aside for garbage. One such vehicle will be able to transport 18.5 cubic meters of compressed waste. But who said that the electric truck would be just a garbage truck? This chassis design is based on a modular principle, which will enable the creation of not just vehicles for transporting solid household waste, but also garbage trucks, cranes, trucks with isothermal containers for delivering various kinds of goods in the future.
Крани, машини з ізотермічними кузовами, які призначені для розвозки різного роду товарів.
Essentially, Ukrainian designers have created a prototype of a multi-purpose cargo platform that, with the use of various modules, will be able to fulfill the needs of a modern city in an optimal and efficient way. Its estimated range on one charge is 220 kilometers, speed 80 kilometers an hour. Drivers have ventilation, heating, air conditioning, and a video feed instead of a rear-view mirror at their disposal. The Ukrainian electric truck is filled to the brim with modern electronics. It has systems for emergency braking, directional stability, automatic adjustment of body position relative to the level of the road, lane switching control, and cruise control. We have studied a number of specific requirements of trucks. We had to study them because it would have been almost impossible to design something without them. Obviously, the hardest part was putting this vehicle together. Almost all the components, except for wiring harnesses and the fiberglass parts, were supplied to the Lutsk automobile plant from abroad, but it was the Ukrainian engineers who managed to put it all together within a chassis that they developed themselves. The design and development work began in February 2018 and was completed in August. The production of prototypes began in July. 2 prototypes came off the production line for testing. As they say, the trucks were born in anguish, but that is okay. The results we received are very good. I think that for today, even though it still needs refinement, it exceeded all our expectations. When the Danes came to visit us, the president of the company and his line workers, they were all quite impressed with what we've achieved so far. The 2 electric trucks underwent certification in the European Union in spring 2019. That is, experts test them for compliance with all active and passive safety regulations. Only then, after all the necessary modifications have been made, will it be possible to begin mass production of electric trucks. Yaroslav Hrytsev admits that this project became a kind of a test for the plant's workers. They could not make any mistakes. The assembly process is 80 to 90% manual labor, which depends directly on specialists, their condition and professional training. It is extremely important. The mentality also matters here, when a worker might think, it's fine the way it is. But we knew that everything must fit perfectly in this situation, and no defects are acceptable. We had to fix everything along the way to get a positive outcome. This project made us more responsible. Thanks to this approach, the mentality of both our main specialists and workers has changed for the better. Apparently, they're going to have plenty of European practice. Since in early 2019, the Ukrainian manufacturer signed another contract with a French company to manufacture heavy-duty bodies for electric buses, the ones that smoke-filled Paris needs so much. Right now, Ukraine has both the specialists and equipment to help Europe make the switch to environmentally friendly transport, but most importantly, it has the desire to produce a world-class product.